will be making the presentation, Lord, that you would give them strength, you would give them clarity. And for those of us who are here to learn and benefit, Lord, that we will receive it in our spirits. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen. And you've already met Mr. Marion Kelly, and he's going to start us off today with, I believe, a presentation and some more detail about the FIT study. And also afterwards, if you are interested, him and his study team are prepared today to get you signed up and ready to go. Hopefully you will participate. One of the things that I always have discussions around, because I am in research, metabolic research, not cancer research, but one of the things that I always have to have a discussion around is how there's not enough representation of brown skin in our clinical trials. Now, I understand the history behind that, right? I understand the generational trauma that sometimes prohibits us from being involved in clinical trials. But like everything else, we have to transition on. Because as we start to move to this more artificial intelligence world that we are already going into today, if they don't have the right types of biosamples and other things from communities of color, we're going to miss out on things that are called precision medicine. And then we're really going to have some health disparities in our communities. So if you have hesitation or you have pause about being in a clinical trial, if nothing else, this is the right place to get started. It's right because there's no blood work that has to be drawn from you. No one has to take any of your genetic typing or anything that you might think is going to be detrimental for you or that you're worried about. So this will introduce you into the clinical trial world because you'll get to go through the process of being given information and what they call being consented to enroll in a trial. So this is that baby step, right? Getting your feet wet. And I ask everyone, if you qualify, that you do get enrolled today because you can walk away with a world of knowledge. You'll also have follow-up care from healthcare professionals. So they're not just going to get you enrolled and let you do your own thing. They're going to follow you. They're going to talk to you. They're going to make sure you're okay. They might even, this is going to sound horrible, give you better health attention than your current clinicians. So listen to what's available, and hopefully everyone will take this seriously. I'm unable to participate because, as I told Marion last week, I just had my colonoscopy, and I got the results back, and they found a polyp, and he'll probably explain what a polyp is, maybe. They found a polyp, and it is precancerous. So I'll be watching it, and I'll have to go back in 3 years for my follow-up. Usually it could be anywhere from 5 to 10. But this is serious in our community. And you guys know I don't eat red meat. So it's not just always your diet. There's so many other things. So learn today, get all the information you need, and hopefully you'll take it serious enough to enroll in the study. And I'll turn it over to Mr. Marion Kelly.
Thank you, Dr. Gilliam. I think we're going to start with the video, and just after the video, we're going to open up for Q&A. I have Dr. Umar here and the rest of the colleagues from the team that will be able to answer questions. We have 2 rooms for consenting people that want to participate, and we will do that one person at a time so you can follow each of them to a room. In the meantime, let's roll the tape.
The faith. I'm Marion Kelly. I'm responsible for community and business relations at Mayo Clinic. We are delighted to be in the service with you this morning. I want to welcome you and create a space of welcoming. I want to create a space of trust because there has been mistrust in the past when it comes to people of color and clinical trials. However, I also want to atone for those past atrocities. Not that Mayo Clinic has been a part of them, but because we are a part of the entire health milieu, I feel a sense of responsibility to apologize for those past atrocities. I also want to assure you today that those things could never happen again. There are far too many oversights in place for that to happen. Furthermore, there are people of color. There are allies that we have who have interest in making sure that we close these health outcome gaps that we see in Black and Brown and Native populations with Caucasian populations. No matter the disease, the mortality of people of color is typically 2 times that of our Caucasian brothers and sisters. Let's make a change for that today by participating fully in the entire healthcare landscape. So we're here today to talk about one of those, and that is the colorectal cancer screening study. My colleague, Dr. Jewel Kling, is here, and she's going to share with you what this study is, what it is that is required to participate, and give you the particulars. And after that, our colleagues are there in person and can help you understand it. Please meet my sister from a different mister, Dr. Jewel Kling.
Thank you so much, Marion. What a privilege it is to be here today, even if just virtually, to talk to you about our colorectal cancer screening study. As you heard, my name is Dr. Jewel Kling. I'm a professor of medicine, chair of the Division of Women's Health Internal Medicine, and associate chair of equity, inclusion, and diversity at the Department of Medicine at Mayo Clinic, Arizona. And we're here today because in the United States, colorectal cancer is the 2nd leading cause of cancer death. And despite there being screening guidelines that all of us between 45 and 75 should be screened, we see that those rates are disparate and not equitable for our communities of color. The tests that are recommended by these screening guidelines include the fecal immunochemical test, or FIT test, which we're going to share with you about today, or through direct visualization with a colonoscopy. As I alluded to, unfortunately, the Black community is disproportionately impacted by colorectal cancer, with the highest rate of any racial or ethnic group in the United States. In fact, African Americans are almost 20% more likely to get colorectal cancer and are at a higher risk of dying from it. Now, as Mr. Kelly alluded to as well, there are many complex reasons that factor into these disparities, largely related to things like socioeconomic factors and healthcare access. Now, we believe and hope to do so through this study that providing access to free, easily accessible home-based colorectal cancer screening and appropriate follow-up may help to close that gap. So, if you are 45 years of age or older, if you have no personal history of colorectal cancer or of colon polyps, if you haven't had a colonoscopy in the last 5 years or a FIT test in the last year, and you're not having any active rectal bleeding or GI symptoms, we invite you to participate in our study. What you'll do is you'll be given a FIT test, which you can take home with you, and in the comfort of your own home, collect a sample, and at your convenience, send that through the mail back to Mayo. We'll process that FIT test at no charge to you, and then one of the team members from my office will give you a call to let you know if that test is positive or if it's normal or negative. If it is positive, we will have a nurse navigator reach out to you and figure out together where you can get the colonoscopy that would be recommended after that, which is that direct visualization to make sure that there's not any polyps or colorectal cancer. I want to reassure you that we will be there along the whole process to make sure you get any answers, any questions answered, and to get the results that you deserve. I'm going to hand it over to our team. They're here in the church today, and I'm so grateful. Thank you, and have a wonderful day.
So with that, before we start consenting, because I realize that the pastor won't take too kindly to us pulling you out of the next service if you were staying for that. Want to make sure that all minds are clear, that you have any questions that you have answered. I have my friend and colleague, Dr. Sarah Umar, who is a gastroenterologist at Mayo Clinic as well, as part of the team, that can answer any of the clinical questions that you have, because I certainly could not answer those. So at this point, why don't we open the floor for questions? I'll get to Richard.
In terms of accuracy, how does the FIT test compare to colonoscopy?
That's a good question. So FIT test, so just to briefly kind of set the stage. So a FIT test is a stool-based test. So you'll take a sample of your stool at home, and you put it, and then you can mail it. So what it does is it's looking for blood, microscopic blood in the stool. And that's what that does. Just because it's positive does not mean you have something bad going on in your bowel, your large intestine or your colon. Hemorrhoids, of course, as you know, which are super common, can bleed, and that would give a positive test too. So FIT tests are very accurate at detecting blood in the stool. What they don't necessarily do, though, is tell you why that blood is there. So that's why anybody who has a positive FIT test needs to follow that up with a colonoscopy to tell us, is that blood in there from just hemorrhoids or some irritation down low in the colon? Or is there potentially a large polyp that could be having, little bits of blood that are excreted into the stool? So it is accurate for that, but then you need the follow-up test to tell you why you've got that positive stool test.
So my last colonoscopy was like 6 years ago. But I do an annual physical. They do blood work and everything, all the various PSAs and things. Is that covering me being checked, or is that not?
So blood work and just a routine physical, while very important, and keep doing what you're doing because that's great, will not necessarily turn up something like a polyp, for example. So colon cancers don't develop just out of nowhere. They start with polyps, which are little bumps and growths in the colon. And those are completely asymptomatic. You wouldn't know you had a polyp until you don't have your colonoscopy for a long time, and that polyp grows and grows and potentially turns to cancer. And that's when you might see abnormalities in your blood work, because you can become anemic from that. But the purpose of these tests are to get any findings way before a cancer would arise. So no, I would say routine blood work and physicals, while they're good for overall global health and certainly can turn up a lot, shouldn't reassure you that you couldn't have polyps in your colon that need to be removed.
Good morning. Are polyps a precursor to cancer?
Yes. So there are different types of polyps that can grow. Some of them are completely benign, and often we can tell that when we're doing our scope, and we'll just leave them in because they're not going to hurt anybody. But so the majority of polyps that we remove are precancerous, and those are the ones that over time could become cancer. And it takes a while. It'll take years usually, unless patients have a genetic condition where it can go faster. But in average risk people, that could take years to develop. But colon cancer is really a preventable cancer, and it's the only preventable cancer there is. So if you take polyps out and you keep coming back to us and getting your surveillance colonoscopies like we recommend, you should not ever get colon cancer. So that's why it's so important. It's a preventable cancer, and it's so sad when we see cancers like that could have been detected years earlier, and we could have just taken the polyps out.
I just have a comment, and I just want to come along with what you said. When I had my first colonoscopy, when Jesus was a baby, they found a polyp, and then I had to go back, and it was benign. So it was good, but I had to go back 5 years, and it is vitally important. They put y'all to sleep, so don't be tripping. It's a simple procedure. The stuff you have to do before, you may not like it, but it's well worth it to stay healthy. And for me, I've had people die in my family at early ages, in the early 60s, and I'm 61. I plan on staying healthy and keeping that way. Please take care of your health and listen to what they say. You want to take care of you and remember who you're here for. God has a purpose and a plan for you. And in order to do that, we have to do what's necessary for us.
Well said.
Other questions? Dr. Gilliam.
So my question is more logistical. In this study, if an individual does actually test with blood in the stool, and they have to go for a colonoscopy, if they don't have health care that covers that, will they get coverage through this study so that they don't have to come out of pocket?
I'll take the question. So the question is, if you participate in the study and you do not have insurance, where will you go? You will come to Mayo Clinic. If you have insurance, we have a resource page that will tell you where you can go for follow-up. Contractually, we're not able to take an insurance that we don't have a contract with, and your insurance will contract you with whatever physicians you see. But if you don't have insurance, we'll take you at no cost at Mayo Clinic. Other questions?
Is there a specific Mayo Clinic that you have to go to? Can you go to the one that's in the West Valley, or do you have to go to the one that's out in the East Valley, or can you go to anyone?
So you want to talk about someone that would be brought to Mayo Clinic and where they would go for a colonoscopy?
Yes. So we do. We have two sites where we do our scopes. So like you referred to, the one at the hospital site, which is traditionally where we do our inpatients and people who would need higher level of care and sedation. The majority of our scopes are done on our Shea campus, off of the 101 in Shea. That I'm assuming is where they would most patients would go. So that is our site. I don't know what you're approved for as far as anesthesia, but that would be the hospital campus. But most of them are my guess is you would be done at the Shea location. And we do use sedation. The procedure itself takes between 20 and 30 minutes on average for a colonoscopy. You're sedated. It's like a twilight sleep, so you're breathing on your own. If we ask you to turn, for example, you can do that with assistance of a nurse. And again, it's a comfortable procedure. The uncomfortable, if you will, part of it is the prep the night before. I know, it's terrible. It's just a
What is the prep?
Okay, that's what I was getting to. So it's a solution that you have to drink. It doesn't taste fantastic, but and it gives you massive amounts of diarrhea, which is exactly what it's supposed to do. So it's really it's a very necessary though part of the whole procedure, because if your colon is not cleared out, we can't see, and those small little polyps that might be hiding in there, if they're under a pile of stool, we're going to drive right by them. And then what's going to happen is we're going to say, we couldn't really see very well. Here's another lovely aliquot of solution that you have to drink tonight. You still have to remain without food, and we'll see you tomorrow to do this all again. So it's really in your best interest to do it once, do it right. Just drink the darn stuff and make friends with your toilet for one night. That's all. Yes.
Is there any correlation between colon cancer and divertriculitis?
Diverticulosis?
I knew I was going to say it.
I know what you mean. So diverticulosis is very, very common. It's just little pockets in the colon. Some of you may have heard of or had family members who have diverticulitis. That's when one of those little pockets becomes infected. You can get pretty sick from it. Usually it's fairly mild, and antibiotics treat it. But it is not a precancerous condition. So you can have diverticulosis all throughout your colon, and all it does is it makes it a little twistier for me to get through, but there's no correlation with increased risk for cancers.
So while we continue with questions, I don't want to waste time. We have Danny and Janitza here who are going to be consenting. So I'd like you all to go to the rooms where you're consenting. And if you know you want to participate, follow one of these ladies. We'll continue to answer questions that you have for those who have not made a decision yet. So, other questions?
Can the fit test yield a negative result even if you have polyps?
So most polyps don't bleed. So you could have small little polyps and your fit test would be negative. It is much less likely, though, that you have a larger polyp or certainly a cancer and have a negative fit test. That being said, colonoscopy isn't perfect either because we as humans are driving that scope. So things can be missed. It doesn't happen very often, but we can miss polyps on colonoscopy. So yes, it's possible to have polyps that would be missed with just a fit test, but it still is a very good test to do for screening purposes.
Are polyps removed?
Oh yeah, good question. Yes, so if we see polyps, we take them out right there. Mm-hmm.
Whether they're positive or negative, or is that what you use to determine?
Yes, so unless we see these completely benign type polyps, and they're usually very small and very easy to pick out for us, every polyp otherwise, we take it out right there, we send it to the lab for a pathologist to look at, and they generate a report usually the next day or two. Yep.
So I had a family history of cancer, which made me start taking my colonoscopies early. And I will tell you that I didn't even know it was done when they woke me up and said, "You can leave now." I said, "Well, we haven't done the procedure yet." That's how mild it was, that I didn't even know it had taken place.
We have magical drugs. They are magical. Mm-hmm.
I just had my own, like, probably, I think in December. So, similar experience.
Good.
Are there other questions?
If you haven't taken it, please do. I had my second one just last month, or something like that, and they found 4 polyps, and it came back, everything is okay. But I believe the drug, I don't know, I think I was woke, because I think they had a TV screen up there, and I can see the picture. I did it at the VA, but please, if you're thinking about it, if you're on the edge, do it.
Real quick. How often should you do it? I think I've had it done twice too, and I think it's been within 5 years. How often?
It really depends on what they find and your family history and or personal history. So if you have no family history of colon cancer and you have no precancerous polyps, you're good for 10 years. If you have a family history of cancer, you'll go more frequently. And then if you have polyps, it depends on how many, how big they are, and what type they are as to when we'll bring you back. It's usually 5 to, it's like 3, 5, and 7 are the other numbers in between 10, 1 and 10. So it kind of depends. Everybody's a little different.
Dr. Umar, so if you have a fit test and things come back normal, is it still the same recommendation for a colonoscopy at an appropriate age?
No. So if you're having fit tests, usually you will do those every year if you opt for a fit test. And as long as they're negative, you just keep plugging on, giving a stool sample. If you opt for colonoscopy, then if you have a negative colonoscopy, you can stretch that interval out, again, 5 to 10 years, depending. Yeah.
How do you reduce the likelihood of getting polyps?
I wish we knew that. Polyps usually are something, it's just kind of how you're put together and it's part of your DNA. There is some degree of heredity, so if you have a family history of cancer or polyps, you will have a higher risk. But otherwise, unfortunately, there have been trials to see if certain types of medications, like aspirin, for example, can reduce the risk for polyps. And we have not found anything yet that people can do. Certainly, smoking and alcohol are just bad for everything. But if you're leading an otherwise healthy lifestyle, there's nothing you can do for polyp risk other than come see us.
Lots of fiber help.
Fiber is good for keeping regularity, also for diverticulosis, hemorrhoids, but there's been nothing that's shown that increased fiber in your diet or fiber supplements decreases the risk for polyps. That would be amazing if that were the case, but it's not.
I saw this minister back here putting on rubber gloves, and I walked away from her. Are there other questions? How are we doing on time? Can someone tell me what?
10 o'clock.
Okay, because I don't want to make the pastor mad that I've gotten into the second service. Other questions you have? So let me reiterate the importance of our participation in what are called clinical trials. So as I said on the video, no matter the disease, people of African descent are at the bottom of the rung when it comes to mortality. We die twice as much from the same diseases. And if we don't participate in trials so that people can understand how something impacts and affects us, we will never change that health gap, that health outcome gap. So that's why we're here. That's why we'll be at First Institutional. That's why we'll be at Pilgrim Rest. That is why we will be at Antioch Church in the West Valley and Rehoboth Church in the West Valley doing this very same thing. It's not cheap. It costs. But we're committed to eliminating racism in healthcare.
I just have a question. You might have already answered it. How long is a clinical trial? Is it years or is it just, certain?
How long is the clinical trial?
How long does this trial go?
This one, and they're different lengths, but this one specifically.
I don't know what your guys' do you know what the, oh, it's 1 year. Oh, I think did you mean clinical trials can be of varying lengths, but you meant this one, correct? Is it 1 year?
Yeah, this within, I think, a 4 to 6 week period, we have to have all of the fit tests back so that we can run the labs and then get back with you, because there's a finite amount of time that this grant was given to us. And I believe it's about a year. Right. So the people that are consenting in the office back there, they're enrolling you in the clinical trial. All minds clear. We thank you for participating in Health Sunday. We're delighted to be here. We will not be strangers. This is not helicopter research where we come in and take something and don't leave anything. We hope to have a long-term relationship with the Word Church. And we didn't provide a grant to get a study. We provided a grant so that we could change the health outcomes of African descent people and other people of color in the Valley. Thank you so much for being here.